Piggy Intercity features a story that is much more difficult to follow than that of the main game, simply because to understand it, you have to explore Intercity's world. It's hidden in notes and dialogue, cutscenes, and hidden Easter eggs, some of which you won't find unless you're actively looking for them. In today's video, I'm explaining Piggy Intercity's full timeline with all the details we see both in the full Intercity game and in the demo, as well as with some details from the main game. Before I do begin, however, I must note that this timeline is really more of a theory than a breakdown, but with that out of the way, let's get right into it. Piggy's world is one consisting of many different locations, but across many distinct landmasses. One such landmass is the land of Valia, which is inhabited by humans, anthropomorphic vegetables, and most prominently, anthropomorphic animals. The technology in this world is also just a little bit advanced, as robots in some places weren't a rarity even before the 2000s. But with that being said, we can begin discussing our first point in the timeline, the Tritanian Insurgency. Long before the infection, a notable war called the Tritanian Insurgency took place. It began when a specific group of people rebelled against the existing Evolian government, launching the country into total warfare as the Evolian armed forces got involved. Hence why it was, in fact, an insurgency. At the moment, we don't really know the specific details of the war, but I did make a theory video which you should check out if you haven't already. Presumably a long time later, a viral infection would break out in the city of Lucella. As soon as government officials became aware of this, Evolians would no longer be allowed in or out of the city to prevent the infection from spreading. However, somehow, some way, a high schooler in Everview named Morris would fall ill with the infection. The following day, you, an Evolian, would wake up getting ready for school. Your mother is a factory worker, and your father is the Minister of Public Safety for Evolia, having a very high place in the government. After talking to your parents, you rush to meet up with your friends Kit, Bryn, and Morris. While walking to school with your friends, Morris complains about his stomach hurting. Later during the school day, Morris would turn into one of the infected, forcing everyone in the school to flee. You run as fast as you can, finding a wooden stick and using it to fend off against some infected students, before running home thinking deep about what's just happened. Your parents are nowhere to be found, and you have no idea where your friends could be. You're not even an adult yet, and you've lost just about everything. No friends or family in sight, and now you need to explore a harsh and unforgiving world, forced to grow up. But as you begin your journey, the military makes their way to Everview and evacuates some of the townspeople. We know this from the tender NPC in Everview. This marks the beginning of your journey throughout Evolia in the midst of the infection. But before we continue with your story, we have to travel elsewhere. As the infection continued to spread throughout Evolia, no cities were left safe. Amberdale, a portside town not too far from Lucella, would soon fall victim to the virus as it reached the city's bounds and infected stormed the streets. We can theorize that the citizens of Amberdale put up quite a good fight, using loose bricks as blockades and fortifying their buildings as planks. Mocha, a mole from Amberdale, and a few of his friends would travel Evolia for years, trying to find a place where they'd fit in just right. And after quite a while of searching to no avail, they gathered any spare scrap they could find and hastily erected the Fort, a survivor camp in Evolia. Sometime after or before this, a cure to the infection would be concocted somewhere in Piggy's world by the Evolian armed forces. Located in the mainland near the small town of Shadewood, the fort would be open to any and all survivors in need of rescue. At some point, presumably a few years after the infection began, an individual would travel to the fort, helping Mocha gather wood and stone to start a small fire and bring warmth to the fort. After doing so, Mocha tasks them with talking to Delaney. She's the one who dishes out rations among the fort's inhabitants, and as a package she'd like the Evolian to deliver to Shadewood, a town that was founded a few decades before the infection. After reaching Shadewood, the Evolian travels to the town hall and finds Bailey, the receptionist. She looks particularly distraught. When asked if everything's alright, she explains that the Shadewood Motel is home to sick travelers, and how the tyrannical Mayor Cutter has been wanting to kick them out for quite some time. Mayor Cutter has been running the town for a while, even before the infection began, and using the citizens' taxes to fund his own lavish lifestyle. She and the other townsfolk believe that the sick travelers can get better, but Cutter won't listen to them. She asks the Evolian to try convincing him, and after their efforts are in vain, they go around town rallying up the townsfolk. Later, they all team up, rallying against Cutter and forcing him to resign, finally ending his reign over Shadewood. We know from the full Intercity game that after Cutter was kicked out of office, Shadewood began searching for factions to build relationships with, mainly for trade purposes. It tumbled across the Liberators, a rebel faction that had been working against the government for years, possibly even before the infection. When it did break out, they continued their feud with what I and others theorize are the remnants of the government, the Capital. This faction acts as a government entity and oversees Citadela, a city enveloped by a large concrete wall. The city was once one of the most prosperous in the region. However, while Shadewood was forming connections with the Liberators, trouble was brewing in Citadela. We know from the full Intercity game that some sort of attack was launched in Citadela, known simply as the Battle of Citadela. This battle was fought between the Capital and the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie used to be the Valiant Armed Forces before they split apart and formed their own faction sometime during the infection. While the reason the battle was waged isn't known, we do know that during the conflict, the Cure was destroyed. We also know that Capital spies made their way into the Valkyrie's ranks during this time, some of which could theoretically still be hiding among the Valkyrie soldiers. When the war finally ended, it ended in a stalemate. The Capital continued to control Citadela, and the Valkyrie resumed their conquest in Avalia, while some moved back up north, possibly to look for any remaining research about the Cure. But during this battle, the Liberators were busy carrying out an operation of their own. The main goal during the infection is to liberate certain regions, like cities or towns. During this time, they tried to give Lucella a taste of freedom, the city in which the infection had begun. While they tried hard to liberate Lucella, it simply wasn't ready for freedom. So, the Liberators left, putting any further missions to liberate the city on hold. For the next few years, not much actually happened. The Valkyrie continued expanding throughout the mainland, taking over locations like the airport, sports stadium, and the docks. A member of the Valkyrie named Tyree would also travel back to Lucella during this time in search of nostalgia, but he would be captured by veterans of the Avalian Armed Forces and never heard from again. In the meantime, the Liberators continued their feud with the Capital, with one of their members actually venturing into Citadela, though he was never heard from again. But their leader was looking for someone very specific. You. After 10 years of surviving the unforgiving apocalypse plaguing Avalia, you pass out somewhere near the fort. Mika, a mouse, sees and rescues you. You wake up in the nurse's tent, talking to Katie, who greets you. After searching for food and water, she tells you that there's no room for you at the fort and that you might be able to find residence in Shadewood, a nearby town. After that point, the choice is yours. You control this story, make your own choices, and form a timeline influenced by your actions. This is where our timeline ends, but where Piggy Intercity begins. It's a choice-driven game, meaning that everyone's timeline will be different in the end.